Okay. Thank you all for coming to this webinar as part of the RMIT and University and the United Nations Global Compact Cities Program. We are lucky to have a range of speakers from across our European campus and a guest in Mike Barker to present on the Horizon 2020 funding and RMIT Europe. The webinars that the Cities Program hosts monthly or bi-monthly focus on a range of issues related to cities and support them to connect with each other and also connect with broader activities, programs, research that's occurring that may support them to achieve their sustainable development goals and apply the United Nations Global Compact principles around human rights, environmental sustainability, labour and anti-corruption. So just to start the proceedings, it would be great if people could do a brief introduction to themselves and then we'll proceed with the first speaker, which is Marta Fernandez, who leads the RMIT Europe campus. So I'll just make sure everyone can communicate and then we'll go from there.
I can't see the slides now, Mike.
That's okay. I'm just making sure everyone can talk. So I've unmuted everybody. If people could do a brief round of communication, that would be great. So who have we got on the webinar?
Maybe I can start first. My name is Arun Vishwanath. I am a research scientist at the IBM Research Lab in Melbourne. I've been here for about 3.5 years now, working on smarter buildings, applications of IoT in the context of improving the energy and cost footprints of large buildings. I'm also involved in renewable energy, looking at solar PV panels, energy storage technologies, and how they can interplay with demand response and things like that.
Oh, that's great. When people introduce themselves, if they could just mention their name and the where they're from, and we'll run through whoever's there. But that's great to have you on board.
Thank you, Mike. Just a quick question. I'm unable to see the list of participants on the screen. Is there will I have the option to view the participants, or only the moderator can see them?
We'll circulate something.
Great.
It should be fine. All right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
No worries. Any other participants want to put their hand up just to let people know they're on the line?
Alan Pearce here from RMIT in Melbourne. I work on a wide range of clean energy and climate policy issues and urban development issues.
Right, thanks, Alan.
Hi, this is Dunia Krause from the UN Research Institute for Social Development in Geneva, Switzerland.
Welcome on board.
Hello, this is Inés Crosses Ramon from Pompeu Fabra University, Barcelona, and I'm a political scientist and researcher.
Right, thank you. I'll just take a couple.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please, I'll take a couple more.
Elizabeth Ryan here from the UN Global Compact Cities Program, also saying hello to Marta and Ahmet and Sergio and Mike.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, we'll proceed with the teleconference, or sorry, the webinar, and we'll just go from there. So, without further ado, Marta, your speakers all good?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Great.
Okay.
This is Marta Fernandez. She's the RMIT University European Campus, I suppose, CEO or Director, and she's going to provide an overview of the activities in Europe. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you, Michael. Are you controlling the slides?
I am.
Okay, so if I just say next, that would be great. Well, hello everybody on the line. It's great to have this opportunity to run a session with Michael and his team to share with you some of the things that we do from Europe and some of the knowledge that we've gained over the last few months on how we can best support RMIT staff and our partners in accessing European funding. So if you go to the next slide. Next. So RMIT, I see there are a few RMIT staff on the line, so this will be known to you, but for those that are not so familiar with RMIT, know that it's a very big university. We have over 80,000 students, 11,000 staff. It's a very international university. We define ourselves as a university of design, technology, and enterprise. And internationalization is really at the heart of the DNA of the university. That's why we have several campuses in Melbourne, three campuses in Melbourne, and we have 2 campuses in Vietnam. We have activity in China, in Indonesia, India, and this is a small office that we run from Barcelona, which is not so much as a campus, but an office that represents the university in Europe. Next. So this is just to show you this global reach. The university has a very wide-ranging partnerships for research activity and for student exchange, and we also provide education through other universities, like we do in Singapore, where we do a lot of management training through the Singapore Institute of Management. Next. So RMIT Europe, as I said, is an office of representation of the university. We're focused on enhancing the reputation of the university as a whole by leveraging the physical presence that we have in Barcelona. And we're focused on 2 main things. One is to enhance research impact of the university's research, and the other one is to create more and better international experiences for our students. So if we focus on the research side, what we do is to, as one of the things we're going to talk about, try to identify consortia for European funding that we can join, and lead initiatives with our European partners to access public funding, both at European and national level. So what you see on the screen is the set of research capabilities that the university has framed as enabling capability platforms. These are the core areas of expertise that the university has, and we're, from Europe, focusing on 2 main areas. One is Industry 4.0, so advanced manufacturing, fabrication, advanced materials, as you see there. And the second one is urban futures, which is more relevant to the people that we have in this audience. And we have Hartmut and Sergio from my team that are both working in this space of urban futures research. Next. Yeah, so industry engagement in Europe is one of the key parts of our activity. We engage with companies for identifying internship opportunities for our students, but also very much for developing collaborative research opportunities. And we see that there are a lot of European companies that are interested in Asia Pacific or interested in infrastructure developments in Australia. So we're holding conversations with quite a few of those industrial partners and working with some of them on European projects. And just to finish up my slides, this is an example of a project that we're working internationally on, and it was led by the urban planning team in Melbourne, where they looked into the development of a set of new cities that would be in a potential high-speed corridor that would go from Melbourne to Sydney. So it was an interesting theoretical exercise of developing smart, new, sustainable cities that is now turning into potentially another new project around the state of Victoria that will attract interest from European actors. So we're there trying to facilitate the relationship between European industry, RMIT, and other academic partners around Europe to create a research collaboration around this topic. And I think I now hand over to my colleagues to talk in a little bit more detail about how cities can participate in research projects.
Hi, it's Mike here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay. Well, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to explain to you a little bit about how to access Horizon 2020. So we go on to the next slide. I'll show you what I'm going to talk to you about. I'm going to give you a little overview of the Horizon 2020 budget, how much money is available, and how it is structured. Give you a few ideas about what is involved in preparing a proposal for Horizon 2020, and then draw some conclusions. I don't know how much you already know about this program, so excuse me if I say a few things that may be obvious. I'll try to structure this so there's a little bit of insight for everybody. So if we can go on. We'll talk about the budget and structure of Horizon 2020. So here is the main message. This is the main funding instrument in Europe. It's a program which runs from 2014 to 2020. It has a budget of about 80 billion euros. This is a big funding opportunity. And you can see here that the cake is divided up basically in three big slices. Lots of money for excellent science, which is basically about research, industrial leadership, which is about technology transfer, and the biggest slice of all is societal challenges, which is about the application of innovation, which is where if there's cities involved, that's where it's mainly going to be. Okay. So if we go to the next one, we'll see where does the idea for Horizon 2020 come from. A metaphor which was used a lot politically when this program was being developed, talked about the valley of death. The idea that Europe has traditionally been very good at doing basic research and not so well in transferring this knowledge to the market in terms of patents, in terms of innovation, and in terms of products. So Horizon 2020 has been designed to bridge this valley of death. Okay? The next slide will show you how that has been done. Now, there's a lot of information on here, but don't worry about it. What I want to try and show you is that the structure of Horizon 2020 are these three pillars, which you can see bridging this valley of death, which really correspond to these three slices of the pie that I talked about earlier. There's one for basic research, there's one for industrial consortia, and there is one for these societal challenges, which are perceived as being closer to the market. So building on these three pillars, you can see in the blue blocks, we move from science to the application of science, i.e. technology, through to the development of products, and through to production. Okay? The yellow boxes, which are on top of that, are very useful if you get as far as preparing a proposal. These are the technology readiness levels, TRLs. Now we're starting to talk about the jargon which is used in proposals. This is actually extremely useful. I think it was adopted from something that NASA developed to talk about where are you on the line from doing basic research to having a successful product in the market. And this is a scale which goes from 1 until 9. So if you get into looking at calls for proposals, it's very useful because now they will clearly say, we want to have call for proposals, for example, which will take things from a TRL 3, which is proof of concept, to a TRL 5, which is validation. So, for example, if you're a city talking about doing things close to citizens, you're not really in this call. You want to be looking at a call which says it's taking things from TRL 7 or validation in the real environment to TRL 8, something like that. Okay, so this is just, you can see on this single slide all of the structure. It's about taking things across the valley of death. There are these 3 columns to do it. We're talking about taking science, technology, products, and production. And all the call proposals will talk about TRL. Okay, on to the next slide. We will see then that you will come across calls for proposals, specific work plans, as they're called, organized in this way, around these 3 pillars that we talked about, and in these various programs. I should say that this was a slide that was at the beginning of Horizon 2020. We are now halfway through, and things are becoming simplified. There are new work plans will be produced by the end of this year. They will be published, and there'll be a whole string of calls that will be up for grabs, up for possibilities for proposals at the beginning of 2018. And increasingly, they're becoming simpler. Initially, there were 20, I think there were 12 focus areas, then 9, and in the next calls, there will just be 4. And these 4 areas which will come out are about building a low-carbon, climate-resilient future, about connecting economic and environmental gains with circular economy, about digitalizing and transforming European industry and services, and about boosting the effectiveness of the security union. Just to give you an idea of where Horizon 2020 is now going. Okay? And last in this section, just to give you an idea, this is a big table, lots of information. The only message to take from it is to show you roughly how the calls are organized. Funding rates are either 100% or 70%, depending on what sort of organization you are. 100% for public organizations and non-for-profit organizations, and 70% for private companies. The types of call are, some are called research innovation actions, others are innovation actions, which are for developing new products, services, and innovation. And it's what they call CSAs, coordinate and support actions, which are more about developing networks, communities, and they're about communication. Typical duration of a project will be from 2 to 4 years, and typically the European contribution in a project like this might be between 1 and 5 million euros, depending on the type of work which is being done. And finally, also, you might typically find a minimum of 3 legal entities from 3 European member states or associated states or other countries being involved in those. Right? If we have time for questions, I'll happily talk more about those. If we go on, then you'll see that that is the overview of the program and of its structure. Very briefly, to give you an idea of what would be involved if you wanted to prepare a proposal, you'd say that once the calls are announced, there's usually at least 6 months between that and the deadline for submission. And even before those calls announced, you might identify where your interests are based on these work programs and start looking around to see how you'll be involved. To make a good proposal, really you want to be building a consortium at least 3 months before the deadline, because it does take time. You should be writing a proposal maybe 2 months before the deadline in order to be able to submit a high-quality proposal in time. In general terms, that's what the timeline is. Okay, if we move on. To give you an idea, this is a recent slide showing how the quality of the proposals has evolved. The purpose of showing you this is just to show you that it is very competitive. Only the very best proposals get through. Proposals are typically scored out of 15, and you can see here the evolution between the 2014 and the 2016 calls. The number of proposals, this green bit at the very top, which scored between 13 and 15 out of 15, has gone from 11% to almost 20%. So this means that only the proposals which are excellent, to get these scores of 13 to 15, are getting funded. And only half of those, in fact, got funded. So it's a program which is very competitive. And this is why, if you're going to do it, you have to do it well, you have to start thinking about it early, and you have to have a high-quality proposal. Okay? But it's worth doing. We move on. What happens after you submit your proposal? Basically, just so you know, after it takes about your proposal will be evaluated within 5 months. If you are successful, then the time from being told you've been successful to getting a grant is about 3 months, and then about 1 month after that you should be kicking off, starting your project. So basically it's about 10 months between submitting a proposal and a successful project starting. Okay? Then the next slide will be if you do get your project up and working, then this is how it works. You have some periodic reporting, you do financial reporting, and you get on and actually do the work. They're the 3 cogs in the process to make it work. That's it, really. So I think to conclude, very simply, the conclusions are as follows. It's the major funding opportunity for innovation in Europe. Right? The common expected impact of the projects is sustainable growth and jobs in Europe. The main benefits of participation come from international collaboration amongst pioneers. Competition is very fierce. Only the excellent proposals get funded. And if you are seriously committed to sustainable development and innovation, then there are opportunities for you in Horizon 2020. Okay? So I hope that was useful to you. If you have time at the end, I'll be very happy to take any questions from you. I hand over to my colleagues for the specific information.
Thank you, Mike. That's great. Hartmut, if you wanted to present next.
Yep, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. We can.
Yeah. Sorry that you can't see me. There was a problem with my camera and WebEx. So I just wanted to briefly reflect on, I guess, my own experience of working on research projects with cities, because I do think it's important when we engage cities in these projects, whether it's you are working for a city and you need to ramp up support internally, or you are liaising with cities to get them involved in a big Horizon 2020 project proposal. I think it's important to be clear about what's in it for them. So this is just a brief reflection on that. Next slide. Traditionally, if cities want to engage in cutting-edge research and development, there are a number of ways to do that, as you're probably aware. Some of the bigger cities have their own in-house research units that they can, task with all sorts of different research activities, but they're probably only, some of the larger ones. What's more traditionally done or more frequently done is outsourcing to consultants, and also, I guess, in some contexts, depending on the task at hand, outsourcing to academics as contract research. You can also, if you're a city, you can become part of collaborative projects, either through peer-to-peer collaboration, which, for example, is facilitated sometimes through transmunicipal networks, such as the UN Global Compact Cities program. And increasingly, I guess what we're seeing is what some people call transdisciplinary research, where practitioners, people working in cities, join up with researchers who are working in an applied fashion, and then together develop research questions and methodologies and solutions for these questions. And this last point is, I guess, what I would say the main thrust of many of the Horizon 2020 and other research funding programs out there. These programs can facilitate this type of activity. I've just listed here some of the benefits of working on large collaborative projects that I have heard being discussed by cities and I also really think are critical. Obviously, it gives you access to potentially large pots of funding. It allows cities who otherwise don't have much capacity to be involved in internationally leading research and development to do that, and based on that also gain recognition and increase their reputation. There's a potential for the resourcing burden to be shared across many partners, and this kind of like involvement in international projects can actually be a really useful strategy for making progress with otherwise rather complex and challenging policy issues in-house or in your city at home. It's also obviously an opportunity for expanding professional networks, particularly on an international scale. And these projects, because of the size and gravity of them, often also afford an opportunity to advocate for particular policy agendas nationally and internationally. And I think maybe if we have time for the discussion afterwards, there's probably other benefits that you can think of. Next slide. There are also some challenges that I think are important to keep in mind and discuss up front with some potential city partners. There is obviously a requirement to think in-house within a city administration about how such a contribution would be resourced or co-resourced, and that involves particularly staff time and travel, as not always all effort can be covered by funding coming from the actual project. There's also sometimes significant transaction costs for coordinating the project, especially where we have large consortia of 10 or 20 and more partners. This depends a lot on the actual project structure and of course also on the capabilities and methods of the consortium leaders. And then of course there are practical challenges of working in projects sometimes across time zones, but certainly across institutions, cultures, and sometimes working with language barriers. So these are just some of the things I wanted to highlight, generally speaking, to stimulate some thought. I'd like to hand over to Sergio Tirado, who's going to talk about some specific experiences with Horizon 2020 projects.
Great, thanks, Hutton. Sergio, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Sergio Tirado from RMIT Europe in Barcelona. I'm a research associate affiliated to the Center for Urban Research, as Hartmut Funkfeld is. I'm a researcher. I do stuff about sustainable and fair energy transitions, more specifically about energy affordability and access to energy. But I also collaborate. I'm here in a business development capacity. I help RMIT University get into internationally funded projects, and Horizon 2020 is definitely one of our priorities. So the idea is that we have thought of this presentation going from general to more specific. And what I will be presenting here is the experience of the Urban grownup proposal, successful proposal, and then project. This is 13.4 million euro Horizon 2020 Innovation Action, one of the actions funded by Horizon 2020. It is led by Spanish Technology Center, Fundación Cartif, and it was sent to the Horizon 2020 call demonstrating innovative nature-based solutions in cities. The idea is to show how European organizations of different character, companies and universities, can help deploy what is called nature-based solutions, which are quite important for addressing issues such as climate change mitigation and adaptation. RMIT was invited to lead one of the work packages in this project. It is work package 6, replication strategy. And that means that we have to collaborate closely with the 8 cities of the project. There are 3 front-runner cities: Liverpool in the UK, Izmir in Turkey, and Valladolid in Spain. The idea is that a number of nature-based solutions, from green facades to artificial ponds and lakes, will be built, will be deployed, will be tested in a number of demo sites in these front-runner cities. And the knowledge gained in this process will be then shared with a number of follower cities, which are Chengdu in China, the fastest growing city in the world, the city of Quy Nhon in Vietnam, the city of Mantova in Italy, Ludwigsburg in Germany, and Medellin in Colombia. You can also see Rovaniemi in Finland. They didn't finally make it to the end, the other part of the project. And we are also in charge of task 1.9 within the project, which is the co-creation, co-development tools. The idea is that these nature-based solutions need to be agreed, need to be co-created with a number of stakeholders. It is not just local authorities telling their citizens what is going to happen, and we are providing a methodology for co-development of the solutions that are going to be tested. We are also helping all cities in delivering what the project called Re-Nature and Urban Plans, which is a plan to re-nature, to implement on an urban scale the solutions that are being tested in the front-runner cities. We can go on, please, Michael. So, based on the experience in Urban Greenup, one important message is that cities within but also outside the EU are encouraged to join Horizon 2020 consortia. And in the specific case of this call, one of the reasons is to create a global market of nature-based solutions. And for this, it is particularly important to have Asian cities. And I believe that having Chengdu, a very large and quickly growing, very important city in central China, it is definitely an asset of this proposal, and perhaps one of the reasons why we got it. I must say that the partner for Urban Greenup is not RMIT Europe, it is RMIT Vietnam. They are the ones responsible for the delivery of the project, of the tasks and work package that has been assigned to us, and also responsible for the funding. But of course, we function as a one institution, so we're delivering the project jointly with Vietnam and also under the academic leadership of Sarah Begisi and the Interdisciplinary Conservation Science Research Group in Melbourne. One of the things that I realized working on Horizon 2020 proposal is that there are many unwritten rules. There is a political economy of quid pro quo kind of favors, which is important to bear in mind, and it makes much sense to build up functional and successful consortia. So partners such as ourselves, RMIT, Vietnam, Europe, we are often asked to bring cities into the consortia because they are some sort of clients, definitely final users of the solutions, of the products tested, developed. And also because in some cases, there is a need for co-funding. Definitely, in the case of Urban Greenup, Izmir, Liverpool, and Valladolid, they are contributed with their own funds. for the implementation of the solutions in the various demo sites defined. So it is important to if you would like to participate in one of these proposals, one of the things you can do is to bring one city as a partner, or help bring one of the cities, one city as a partner, or any partner that is needed for the purposes of the proposal, because this is something that coordinators appreciate, and this then is reflected on the kind of responsibilities that are given to you as a partner, and also in the budget. We did this with the city of Quy Nhon in Vietnam, which is probably a very good partner to have, in the sense that they are right now struggling with climate change adaptation issues, and more specifically with flooding. So the solutions that are going to be tested in the project are particularly meaningful in this context. We can go on, please, Michael. So there, of course, this kind of provides me a bit more some sort of evidence on what Harald was presenting earlier. There are, of course, direct benefits, such as direct costs, travel expenses, staff costs covered for cities. But this is an input. This is an input to the project. What the actual outcomes, the value that is created for cities, is not just, or it is not this direct cost cover. Of course, it opens opportunity for collaborating with other global cities and with other partners. I mean, we're talking about here about a 13.4 million euro project with 28 partners. So the quantity and quality of interactions, potential interactions within this consortium is very significant, and things may happen there. New projects, new businesses will result of this interaction. Also, it may help leverage additional funding. I'm thinking here of cities as final users of the results of this project. For instance, you can see the possibility of the city of Quy Nhon applying for additional funding to global donors for applying their renatured urban plan that will be drafted in one of the deliverables of this project, and will have kind of the stamp, the quality assurance, the quality stamp of this plan coming out of the Horizon 2020 project. And also, once it will help build knowledge about EU research and innovation, which will make cities and any other partners more capable and visible for future applications. Coordinators of Horizon 2020 projects will get to know you, will get to know your project, and you're more likely to be invited in a future consortium and application if you already have experience in a successful proposal. Can you please move to the next slide, Michael? So my last slide here, very practical advice. Perhaps I don't want to go much into detail, but there are a few things that I think are important or worth mentioning. One of you need a PIC number, participant identification code, and average staff cost in euros per person month to start. This is the very basic information that you will be asked. If you are invited into the consortium, it is important that you have a person appointed to function as a focal point representing the city or your organization, whatever the nature of your organization is, in front of the consortium. Mike was speaking before about proposals being taking 3 months to be consortium being formed in 3 months in advance, ideally, the submission deadline. Throughout this time, you will have to participate in a few teleconferences. So this person will have to spend a few tens of hours participating in these online meetings and also writing bits of the proposals as requested. There's a need to have a basic knowledge on the function of Horizon 2020 and EU rules in general, but this is not a must, in the sense that You can, if you are a city that has been invited to a consortium, you can leverage, you can ask the partner that has invited you to join the consortium to give you a hand with this. Because usually other partners have previous experience in new projects and applications. Of course, I'm saying this here in case you have previous experience with Horizon 2020. And as a final reflection, I think it's important to be ready to engage creatively. Consortia sometimes are very large, very different interests and perspectives come together. So there is a need to be flexible, but also explicit about the cities or your organization's expectations and priorities. In order to have them acknowledged in the proposal, but at the same time being flexible enough for the consortium proposal to be successful. Thank you for your attention. I'm also happy to answer your questions.
Great, thanks, Sergio. The opportunity to ask questions of all the panelists is open, and when you ask your question, if you could state your name and where you're from, and then ask your question, and we'll go through discussion. If they've got a particular question to a particular panelist, please indicate. Otherwise, I'll leave it up to the panelists to respond.
Hi again. This is Arun here from IBM Research in Melbourne. I just wanted to clarify if private organizations such as ours based out of Melbourne can seek the funding by partnering with other colleagues in Australia, or should the the collaborators be based out of Europe?
I can maybe answer that question for you. The easy answer, the more simple one, is that Australian organizations usually can participate but cannot receive funding. So you can be involved, but you would not get funding unless there are very exceptional circumstances in which it will be demonstrated that there would be a unique added value from the participation of this Australian organization. Okay, that's the simple answer. The more complex one is that there are mechanisms in which people from Australian organizations can become involved. For example, in our case of RMIT, often we participate fully with funding. When we are RMIT Europe, we participate fully with funding. Also from our RMIT in Vietnam, because RMIT Vietnam is what they call an associated third country, which has an agreement with the European Union by which they can receive funding. So people from Australia, in both those cases, sometimes work on secondment to RMIT Vietnam or RMIT Europe, in which case we make use of those human resources, and the Australian mother company will invoice us for the time of those human resources. So those are the mechanisms which we use to enable know-how and expertise from Australia to participate fully, i.e. being a participant and receiving funding within Horizon 2020.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
In addition to that, if I may add, I mean, given that you work for a global company, one of the ways to join one of these projects would be through one of your national research centers or branches, headquarters that are legally established in Europe. I can imagine that IBM has been part of Horizon 2020 proposals in the past, and any of the branches of our IBM that are legally established in any of the member states of the
Great. Thank you for that information. Thank you.
Any other questions? Carolyn Evans, are you able to speak? There was a note that you had trouble with your mic. I just wanted to check. Yeah, we still can't hear. Okay. Any other questions for Marta, Mike, or Sergio, or Hartnett? I've got one. I'll just ask myself. The aspect of having the opportunity to participate in a collaboration with an early forming Horizon 2020 bid, is there like a list of notification or a way in which people can connect or be aware of some of the emerging proposals via RMIT or others to consider or try to be involved?
Yeah. Hi. If I understand rightly, the question you had is how can you be well informed about up-and-coming calls and opportunities? Yeah?
Correct.
So then the answer is there are various mechanisms, but there is no one single good one. To be honest, there is, on a general level, a thing called CORDIS, which is a whole database of information of the European Union, which has, in theory, everything, but in practice, it's quite difficult to navigate and find exactly what you want. On the other extreme, if you have a minimum amount of information, Google is very effective. If you put into Google H2020 new calls or something, it's the fastest way to get to the precise information about calls which are up and coming. Okay? Once you start to get into the loop a little bit, or if you know which area you are interested in, then specific parts of the Commission have newsletters and things that you can sign up to. For example, my field is sustainable cities and the use of energy in buildings. And so through both of those, I receive newsletters and updates of up-and-coming calls. One of the things we're working on at RMIT Europe is now a new part of our website, which has basically the information we presented today, a simplified approach and guidelines of how people can participate. And that also has some links to some of these sites and pages, and will be updated with these new calls when they come out for next year.
If I may add to that, so the full 7 years of Horizon 2020 are divided into 2-year work programs. We are now at the end of the 2016-17 work program. So the goals that you may find if you look for open calls are just a few. But in October this year, the new calls for the next 2 years will be announced. And this is a very good time, so October 2017, this is a very good time to carefully go through the through the work program document, different societal challenges, different actions, different calls that will be open over 2018-19, and see what would be of interest for you. Different questions: how to get invited or how to join a consortium. Definitely, if you don't have experience, if it is the first time you're considering joining, applying for Horizon 2020, our advice would be not to lead, not to coordinate the proposal, because this is experience is needed. You need to have been part of a successful proposal and project to be able to submit a good proposal yourself as coordinator. So leverage all your contacts. If you have in mind what sort of call you're interested in, if you have a clear idea of the capabilities of your organization, what your organization can bring into a proposal that will be submitted to a certain call, then leverage your contacts and try to get invited to one of the consortiums that are being formed. That would be my reaction to that.
Great, thanks, Sergio. Any other questions?
There is one question from Usha that she has typed over on the Q&A. This is a question to Mike. She was asking, in your graph that you showed on Horizon 2020 funding, what numbers of applications are we looking at? And was the success rate less than 20%?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. That was an example from one particular recent scope of range of calls. The success rate varies considerably depending on which area, obviously. Horizon is very big. I would say ranges from, I think at the highest rate, I think is between maybe 15%, and the lowest rate in the I'm aware of is what they call the FET program, which is really open calls for pure research, which are extremely competitive, where the success rate is as low as 2%, i.e. the competition is extremely fierce. Okay, so this is the range. It could be the success rate can be as low as 2, and the very highest might be 20%. The number of applications is very hard to say. It depends very much on within the core. And like when I've seen things working with the European Commission, within subsections of one call, for example, I've seen the same thing, 30 applications for a bit of funding where there was scope for 3 or 4 proposals to be approved, but I've seen also as many as almost 100 proposals being submitted, also for a call in which there was money to approve 3 or 4 bids. So it varies considerably.
Yeah. Speaking of urban greenup, there were 35 applications submitted in the first stage. Some of the calls are 2-stage. So there's a 2-stage evaluation. You first send a 10-page pre-proposal with the kind of draft or project idea and then a list of partners and a basic structure of work packages. So if it's this, yes, 3 and shortlisted, then you submit the full proposal, So out of 35 proposals, 13 were made it through the first stage evaluation. Among them, urban greenup. Out of those 13, I think it was 3 or 4 that finally made it and were successful, got funding from the European Commission.
Any other questions? I think we'll go to final comments in terms of closing up. We're almost at the hour. I'll open it up to Marta and Hartmut as well. If there are any final comments or thoughts in terms of the next steps, if cities or other people wanted to be involved.
I would just say, Marta, here that partly in response to one of the comments that has been raised, for those people that are involved in the call from RMIT, know that when we come across opportunities to participate and European projects. We're engaging with RNI and the enabling capability platforms and the research centers to identify the right people from RMIT that can participate and can contribute to this project. So, you know, and we are also using the UN Global Compact Cities program to identify partner cities for some of the opportunities that we've come across. So really, from me, it's like we look forward to continuing working with you, and as we learn about how we can best tap into European funding, we'll be sharing that within our network.
Great, thank you.
I might. Do you want me to add a couple of words?
Please.
I might just say that from my experience as a practitioner, so you know, in a previous life, I think there's a lot of different reasons why cities join, and sometimes we think about these programs as being particularly interesting for large cities who want to be seen as leaders. And, you know, Sergio and I talked about that, but there is actually a real broad variety of types of proposals, as well as ideas that come up through these proposals that often also require smaller cities as well as small and medium enterprises to be involved. So it's good to be open-minded about these opportunities, and yeah, I guess try to associate yourself with networks where these kind of discussions are taking place, as Sergio indicated.
Great, thanks, Hartman.
Right. It is Mike here. Just to add, one last thought just to add. Going on from this comment about if Australia or other countries can participate, if you are not in a European member state, it is worth having a good look at where the position of your country is. Switzerland, for example, does participate, and there's lots of these other third countries which have bilateral agreements or put money into the pot, precisely so that cities and research institutions can participate in Horizon 2020. So whichever country you are in, it's worth having a good look at what the rules are for participation for you.
Great, thanks, Mike. Any final comments, Sergio?
Well, I have started working on Horizon 2020 proposal last year. So I don't really have much experience so far in terms of time spent doing this. Perhaps my final thought here would be that if you're interested in Horizon 2020, as I was saying before, there are lots of unwritten rules. You really need to partner up with people that have experience with this program. I'm learning a lot from people like Marta and Mike, myself, and because you really need to have this insight from people who have been involved in previous proposals, projects, and that is really helpful to understand how the whole thing works and to join a successful proposal.
Great, fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. We will let you know about further webinars coming up. We are hosting an event in Melbourne at RMIT around the sustainable built environment with a range of partners in July, and that'll take a lot of our focus for the July period, but we're preparing a webinar for August, which will have a stronger focus on supporting city partnerships and driving that collaboration between public, private and civil society, local projects, and some of the do's and don'ts to forming those well-brokered partnerships. We look forward to you joining us again. Thank you to all our panellists, and have a wonderful day or night, depending where you are. Thank you.